think unfortunately what happens is people get to the end of their athletic career, if you like, and they don't have the next thing to roll onto. The purpose doesn't feel as meaningful, as driven, new passion. And I think passion, purpose, and community are three things that are vital for our sort of mental approach to things. If I can be joyful in what I'm doing, then everything falls into place. To take a step back, like I have done over the years, and be like, I don't need to grind, is sort of a big shift in, like, that's who I defined it myself as. This is how you win. They can be like, you just become the optimal version of yourself at that stage of your life. And I think that's the thing that is really nice, that you can go, fantastic, this is where I'm at, and where can I go now? The most damaging thing is when people don't see a positive path forward. In less than a minute, you can change how they looking for these little improvements.
Today we have an absolute powerhouse of a guest, someone whose life story is nothing short of extraordinary. He's a 6-time world stick fighting champion, a double English Thai boxing champion, and an elite coach who has worked with world-class athletes, including those at the Wimbledon Tennis Championships. His expertise goes far beyond combat sports. He's the founder of Ireland Fitness and the creator of Life, lifestyle improvements for everyone. He helps people optimize their health through the groundbreaking 8 Pillars of Health approach. From movement, nutrition, breathwork, and stress management, he is redefining what it means to be truly healthy, not just fit. And with decades of hands-on experience, countless personal challenges to overcome, and an insatiable drive for learning and self-improvement, he is here to share game-changing insights that will inspire you to push your limits, transform your mindset, and take control of your health and performance. Welcome, Phill Ireland. Hello and welcome back to this edition of Unleash Your Inner Athlete with me, your host, Julia Pizzi-Kamey, and welcome Phill Ireland. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. Now, I know we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to get into a little bit of a discussion about what it was like for you and your story going from being a champion athlete to then becoming a coach, how you managed to build a successful business and the benefits, your sport helped there. We're going to look at the challenges people do face when they transition from being an athlete, so going from that competitive sporting world to the competitiveness of the business world and what that's like. Looking at peak performance, is it really, how easy is it to maintain peak performance, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well? Maybe looking again how people overcome those challenges and adversities, maybe that sense of identity as well when you make those transitions, and how maybe we need to change our mindset, particularly as we're getting older, when it comes to health and fitness. Do we really need to train hard? Is that really important for peak performance, or do we need to focus a little bit more on health rather than fitness, we say, and what the benefits of those are? And later on in the show, Phill is going to be sharing with you his game-changing strategy, framework, if you like, for his 8 Pillars of Health, which is all about going to help you make sure you get fitter, stronger, and more resilient, but mostly break through those limits, rewire your body, and really get back in control of your future. So, Phill, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about before you got to starting your business, Ireland Fitness. What was life like as an athlete, and what it was like to maybe make that transition for you?
So I was a professional Thai boxer. I competed all the way up and became national champion at 2 different weight divisions. My life, before, I was working while I started training, and as I got sort of into my professional fights, I eventually was able to transition from working a regular job into being able to become a coach within the setup. And I'd say it was all consuming. I got up early, got my run in, managed to get to the gym, coached all day, stopped for an hour to train, carried on coaching, and then it went into the evening, and then the classes finished at sort of 10:30, and then it was time to come back, and that was every day. I was we'd have Saturdays off, but apart from that, it was full on. So I competed at Thai boxing. Ended up fighting internationally against the Belgian champion, the Dutch champion, the Scottish champion, and stick fighting, which is a Filipino martial art. And I've fought that all across the world. I fought that in Belgium, no, in Berlin, America. I fought in the World Championships. I went to the home of the sport in the Philippines, in Cebu, and was fortunate to become 6 times world champion at that, and multiple British champion. And that really set me on this path of getting into coaching. Once I'd been coaching a few years, I decided I wanted to sort of branch out a little bit and do something for myself. So that's where I sort of started up Ireland Fitness. I did a course, became qualified personal trainer, sports massage therapist, nutritional advisor, and bolted that onto the Thai boxing. And really then started to introduce Thai boxing more to the general population, something that they could really enjoy and get hold of. I'd been coaching fighters all the way up to sort of world champion levels, so world champions, Commonwealth champions, trained sort of novices at both sports all the way up. But to then be able to bring it to the population and just show them that if you can train hard, you'll get fit if you can have fun. And the pad work really, really gave that sort of element of fun to people. And I think that was really key in sort of, that was the slogan of Ireland Fitness, was train hard, get fit, have fun. Because if you're putting in the effort and you're having fun, then you get consistency. And with effort and consistency, you just get results as a byproduct. And it was really nice. It really opened it up. I remember there was 3 generations of one family that used to come to my classes. Sort of the middle daughter was going through a divorce, and the mum wanted to bring her along to get her out and sort of into more of a community. So we had a 72-year-old, I think she was, a 44-year-old, and like an 18-year-old, all in the same class. And the atmosphere was just so nice. It was just a really fun thing to coach.
Yeah.
And also good for stress management. There was lots of people with the way life is, just letting rip on the pads is just really, it releases something that's just great, and you can do it in a safe environment in that sort of in that way.
Yeah, so now you've been having this fantastic business, and obviously we know each other from working at Wimbledon. Yeah. So you're combining sort of like the one-to-one clients, and you're also working within the professional sports. But what did you find, I want to get into why this is so important and why we're having this discussion, because obviously there's a lot of people who have been professional athletes. They're now coming either on their way retiring from it, but maybe some veteran athletes who have gone through in this, and they're facing challenges both physically and maybe psychologically, especially as they're getting older. So why is this discussion we're having for you important? What did you, from your experience and going through this journey yourself, why would you say that it's important that we talk about this and sort of come up with these strategies for people?
So after I started setting up the business, I realized that I didn't have the capacity really to continue fighting, and setting up the business really was the end of my fight career. I remember training for a fight, and I really had to. I came back from a run one day, and all I could think up were business ideas that I needed to do. So having that capacity, so it marked an end. But I think, like you said, we'll get onto the pillars of health later. But for me, one of the pillars of health that stood out there was passion and purpose. So my purpose when I was fighting was the fight and the athletic career of the people you're talking about. I think, unfortunately, what happens is people get to the end of their athletic career, if you like, and they don't have the next thing to roll onto. The purpose doesn't feel as meaningful, as driven. I suppose I was lucky with starting up the business, gave me a new purpose, and it gave me a new drive, and that really helped maybe where I would have struggled sort of more emotionally and mentally with that transition. It helped me really sort of focus and sort of push along. And I think that's been a repeating theme as I've gone along. When I sort of got to sort of 2011, 12, I'd been running business quite a while. It had sort of settled, and whilst it was a great purpose, still I really found like mountain running and sky running, and I could put some energy into that, and that again, that became a new passion. And I think passion, purpose, and community are three things that are vital for our sort of mental approach to things. And having that passion and that purpose of pretty much jumping into races that I wasn't good enough to do. And I have I have a feeling when I'm doing things is I get nervously excited. I feel excited because it feels like it could be in my scope to do, but nervous that maybe I've bitten off more than I can chew, and that pushes me in my training, pushes me in where I'm going, and that passion helps me get there. But the purpose of getting to that place.
But do you think that's kind of why I see similarities in some ways between sort of the mindset and maybe the stress in the sense between sport and it, particularly in business work environment? Because like you just touched on there about sort of nervous excitement. So you still have a bit of anxiety, worries, but you like that challenge and doing something that maybe takes you out of your comfort zone a little bit. And how important that is maybe when you're transitioning or you're getting older, you lose that sense of identity, you lose that sense of purpose a little bit, which I think can be quite commonplace, particularly as you're getting older. And engaging back and maybe finding that something else you could be passionate about. It's not just one thing. It doesn't just have to be your business or whatever it may be for you as an individual, but finding something that maybe brings back that sense of challenge and excitement. Is that, would you say, from what you've just mentioned, that's really important to do as you're focus on as you're getting older?
It's essential, because if you don't have that, it's interesting when people talk. I've heard people talk about imposter syndrome, and when they have imposter syndrome, it's like it's something they feel they shouldn't do. But I've heard other people talk about it, be like, no, that's exactly where you should be. Like if you don't feel, if you're sort of there and sort of like, that's where the growth is. That's where the ability. And it reminded me of an analogy. I love analogies, and it reminded me of one of a hermit crab. Mm-hmm. And as it grows, it starts getting too tight in its shell, and that discomfort and that pain is what leads it to go and find a bigger shell. And then it finds a bigger shell, and it needs to then take this gamble of coming out and becoming vulnerable while it has no protection, to move over and get into the bigger shell. And then when it gets into the bigger shell, then it can actually properly grow. And I think we need that discomfort of feeling unsettled to be able to recognize that we need something else. Then we need to step out of ourselves and become vulnerable, and only then do you get true growth. So it's a really nice analogy that I think sort of fits in well. Like you say, you come out of I was going to say a fight career, but any athletic career, and then you don't really feel quite yourself. And fighters, I know a lot of athletes have it, but I've talked to a lot of fighters, and they may have a few sort of quite significant losses, maybe even get knocked out a couple of times, and all of a sudden their career's finished, and they don't have a structure. They don't have. When I was fighting, literally that was what I did. I went home, I trained. I went home, slept, ate, went back, trained. You take that away from somebody, and like any structure in your life, you become sort of a little bit sort of defined by that. And if you can learn to have something else in your life, then you go, okay, I've got this other thing I can put my energy to. And I think that's really, really important, especially for athletes. Yeah. And people as they transition through different stages of their life. It's vital.
Yeah, because I mean, it's exactly like you say. I mean, we kind of put ourselves in these boxes, and particularly as we're getting older, oh well, I'm too old to be doing this, or maybe I shouldn't be doing it. And as you say, you get a little bit. Maybe I think a tendency as you get older to be a bit more fearful, a bit more wary of things as well. I guess maybe from my perspective, maybe in the mindset you're thinking, well, if I injure myself now, I don't want to, hold myself back. I don't want to make my future life worse. But it's also, like you say, it's coming back. But because you're used to having a structure, whether that was a previous sport or whether it's your career, your business, you built up, you had a very defined structure and how things are working. And maybe as you're getting older, you're coming up to these little mental or emotional barriers possibly based on things from your past, whatever your story may have been. But it doesn't mean you can still create a structure around, but it's just that different stage of your life. When it comes to your health and fitness, you can still build a structure in terms of what health and fitness, type of health and fitness, or maybe sport, recreational sport you want to pursue. But facing these challenges and maybe building your whole health and wellness around that structure. I hope I'm making sense here. I'm talking a lot. I might be waffling, but
no, it's brilliant. It's hitting the nail on the head. It's exactly that. And again, you mentioned health and fitness, and I think they get smushed together very easy with the health and fitness industry, but they're so different. And so my brother-in-law got unfortunately terminally ill in 2015, and that definitely shifted my focus from the fitness of the sky running, mountain running. Managed to get to do an Ironman, some great things that I was able to do, but it really shifted me and be like, I need to look at health and really focus on health. And it was always there in the background, but I'd say fitness was my main focus. And then being able to just shift. And again, it's okay, this is a new purpose for me and a new passion, and having that confidence to jump into something new and not go, yeah, but this is what I know, this is what I do, this is what I am, and having the confidence to go, but I can be more or different, and I can change that. And I think it's unsettling to go from a place where you know that you're comfortable and respected, and you could just open the door now and say, Phil, there's 100 people out there, can you go and teach them Thai boxing? And without any preparation, I could just walk out there and just go, cool. And I'm pretty confident I could give a lesson of stuff that a lot of them won't have done before. You could teach them new stuff, you could show them things, but to go, right, let's go down and do this other thing, and that's where I feel a passion in life. And you just go, let's just see what else I can do. And so when my brother-in-law got ill, I started going down that rabbit hole of okay, let's look at nutrition, movement. Some of the fitness things I was doing was quite draining on my body. I did a 101-kilometer race through the Alps. It was 5 mountains, took me 25 hours because I wasn't the fastest fellow out there. But it didn't feel like training hard for about 3 months after that, because it takes a toll. And so you go, okay, but let's look at it from a different lens. Let's look at it from a lens of health. And that's really started me down this thing. And that's how I got into more breath work, sort of thermo treatments, and just using movement for health. And just changing that lens, again, reignited a new passion and has given me more purpose going down that road. And I think it's interesting. I think a lot of athletes have the capability to switch, and maybe more office-based sort of, they don't have that. When I worked in the college, I was a college lecturer for 3 years. And when I was there, they always loved it when there was a sports lecture so when you did teacher training, when you had a sports lecture, they loved it, because they were like, if I say, I want you to, can I have 3 volunteers? As always, no one puts their hand up. Even when they're full of teachers. And they'd always go, I'll ask the sports doc, because they'll all go, yeah, go on then. Because I think they understand that sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But even when you lose, there's something to learn. And there's a
taking part.
It's just getting in there. And I mean, when you're an athlete, you just don't win everything. And you learn that it's not the be all and end all. You just go, okay, well, that was what have I learned from that one? Let's move on. And I think that can give you the confidence. And that's what I found anyway. It's given me the confidence to sort of push myself into new ventures and find those passions and purposes.
And maybe that's a good, like you say, and it's something that to pursue. Is don't be fearful, particularly if you're used to winning a lot. Obviously, as an athlete, you have wins, which are great, like you say, equal fails, but it's also the same in the work. Whether you have a business or you work for a company, you're going to have wins, you're going to have losses. But as you get older, it's not being fearful of losing or losing face or looking silly. It's actually good. It's a way to grow. So for you, I mean, what in your experience, what has been when people have changed their mindset? They've changed the way they've looked at their health and fitness and gone for more of a, maybe taking it from a more health perspective, which I think is really important as we get older, with the way our bodies decline and the risks obviously that come with that. In your experience, and from obviously looking after many, many different types of people, what's the transformation people are tending to see when they switch their perception, switch their mindset when it comes to their performance mentally and physically?
It's crazy. The shift in people, it's just brilliant. And you can just see that they're coping with the roller coaster, I'd say, a lot better. You know, they can shake off aches and pains better. Their recovery rate gets better because they're like, okay, well, I haven't really considered my sleep because I can get by with 5 hours. And you go, well, this is what's happening if you only have 5 hours. And they go, okay, I'll put more value in that. And then they put more value in that. They recover better. That niggle that they've had for 3 years suddenly starts easing off. And I think it just helps. Again, it gives them a purpose, and they've got something to really focus on. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they focus purely on fitness, they get stuck with, well, I just want to get the next PB, or I want to get the next time, or if only I could do a sub 4 hour marathon, then I'd be happy. And you go, or you could be happy and just run. And ironically, you end up getting the better time because you're more relaxed, you're enjoying it. I had one guy come to me, he was like, do you know what? I don't think I'm going to do the marathon. I was treating his legs. He was like, I just can't do it. What I wanted to do, I think it was a sub 4 hour or 3:45 he wanted to do. What's the point? And I talked to him, and we talked about sort of the mindset going into it and what he was capable of. And if he just eased back the pace, he could run that distance. So we talked about it, and he went, and he came back and he was like, Phil, that was the most enjoyable marathon I've run. I think he did like 4:10 or 4:15. So still, for him, it was a pretty respectable time. It wasn't him PBing, but he had the best time. And he's just got this much more joyful way of running. And sort of, for instance, last year, I think he did 54 park runs. So he did every single week and the bonus ones. He's not lost something he loved. Yeah. Because, whereas his other option was, well, I won't run because I'm not going to get this time. So you change their perspective in, but why are you doing it? And if you can get joy out of it, that's sort of, and if that's sort of what I focus life on, I suppose. If I can be joyful in what I'm doing, then everything falls into place. It really does.
Yeah, I think that's really important, having fun, taking that pressure off yourself as well, and saying, you know, why do I need to have a PB? Why do I need to push myself this hard? Because actually, once you relax and you, like you say, enjoy it, you'll find you get better results anyway. You'll continue to do more. You'll be able to push yourself a little bit harder in time, you know, build it up over time. And you'll probably find you'll achieve that PB at some point. But instead of saying, I have to do this, you know, why are people saying, I have to do it? Why do you have to do it? This is, you know, your sport. At this stage in your life, your sport isn't about you making a living. This is about you just getting out there, like you say, having fun, challenging yourself, having another purpose in your life that maybe takes you away from the other pressures you've got. So when you get back to those other areas of your life, be it your work, your family, whatever it may be, you actually come in with a much healthier, positive mindset with more energy for it.
Yes, even more capacity. You suddenly you have the capacity because you've relieved some of that tension, because you go out and you get that relaxation, you get that sort of kick of sort of endorphins, and you're like, and then you can go back into dealing with the things maybe you don't want to deal with quite so much, and coping with those, and you get through those. But when I really encourage people to, not all the time, because it's good to have goals and aspirations and things to work towards, but also sometimes just cover up the timer, cover
Mm.
up the speed. I never run with the speed. I always, if I'm ever on the treadmill, because treadmills are useful tools when you're running in the mountains, because I can't run uphill for an hour anywhere, but I can on the treadmill. But I just cover up the speed, and run, and then you get a better introspection. And I think that's something that nowadays we lose, like this, how to listen to what our body's telling us.
Mm.
We're so obsessed with, well, I've just got to get on and do this. I've just got to,
Yeah.
I want to get that faster time. Well, everybody's getting a sub 4 hour, which isn't true, but we speak in these sort of less than impeccable ways. And you sort of convince yourself that you need to get this to feel validated, but actually I think there's so much more. I mean, I had one guy come to me, I still see him, and he's in his 60s running or around about the 3 hour marathon mark.
Yeah.
He wasn't running a few years ago. Then he started getting into, he heard about me talking about my sky runs, started getting into sky runs, ultra runs. Then he was like, I want to do marathons. And then his speed is just phenomenal. And he just loves it. You can tell there's just, and it's, again, back to where we started this conversation, it's a passion.
Yeah.
And then if you have the passion, then I think if you have the passion, hard work doesn't become, it isn't hard work. I remember a guy called Sadhguru, who I love listening to, and he said, you should never work hard. You should work joyfully. That doesn't mean you don't work long hours or lots of days. You can still work massively long hours, but if it's hard work, then maybe you want to consider looking at changing it. And if training suddenly becomes a chore and hard work, then you're not going to really achieve. And I think that's where that was a little quote that I thought was just really good.
Which comes back to your point about finding the pleasure, finding the fun. If something's no longer fun, why are we doing it?
Yeah. Well, we're doing it because we think we need to get this thing because we set that 10 years ago. We said we were going to get this. And you're like, well.
Which comes back to identity, isn't it? What you're identifying as.
Yes.
And when I say that in terms of who you believe you are, in terms of you've been a successful business owner, for instance, and now, well, if I change this, is my business going to fail? And what does that say about me as a successful business person? You know, it's the same as an athlete.
It's having that, defining yourself by what you do suddenly becomes dangerous, doesn't it? I know lots of people that, they're fantastic movers, and then, their body movement is beautiful, and then they get a back injury.
Yeah.
And walking becomes, and you see the sort of psychological challenges of dealing with it. But I've had friends that have gone through this, and it's amazing to see the mental sort of application. And because that we've discussed like the health issues, and they've just adjusted how they see themselves, and they've just, okay, so that's what I was, now I'm changing. And I think that's something that's really important to learn to let go of. And I hear a lot of the time in the, but I used to be able to. Yeah, okay, cool. We all used to be able to do this and that. And like, I get people come in with, one of my favorites is when people come in with a bad back and they're like, did it deadlifting, cool. And after a few weeks, they're like, right, go back to doing some light deadlifts. And I'm really accurate, because so many people have been like, yeah, I was doing like, I don't know, I tried 180 kilos. And I'm like, that's not light. And then, it is for me. It is for me. You're like,
I've seen it myself. And I have to say, I hate to say it about you guys, but you guys are particularly.
It's generally guys.
Particularly when it comes to the weightlifting. They're so quick to think, well, the heavier lift, the stronger I am. But most of them are doing it with terrible form. And if they did it correct form, they'd have to drop their weight significantly, but then they would gain quicker moving forward. And it's like this thing that I have to be seen to be strong. I have to be seen to be, and like, I've had clients who straight after injury going back to like crazy sporting activities and crazy training, and like you hear their stories about what they're doing with their trainer, etc. And I'm thinking, They're just not ready yet. They need a bit more
No.
time. And eventually they keep getting injured. They keep in this cycle.
I mean, why does this keep happening?
Yeah. I mean, that they're sort of high performance people. They're very highly strung, they don't like to, they're not sort of people who like to take things easy naturally.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a bit of a problem, slowing down and just enjoying the moment and building your strength back up. But that again is a psychological identity, if you like.
And it's a shift you can make, because I would say I'm not a natural athlete at all. I learned to get good at the sports I got good at basically by being tenacious and committed. So I would just wear people down. So I beat people that were technically much better than me. They were better kickers, they were better Thai boxers than me. But if I could weather the initial storm, I would just wear them down, where they just didn't want to keep play anymore. They were just like, will you just leave me alone? And they did that in stick fighting and Thai boxing, and sort of I can outgrind people. So then for me to take a step back, like I have done over the years, and be like, I don't need to grind, is sort of a big shift in, like, that's who I defined it myself as. This is how you win. You just, I remember having a logic that if I'm hitting you, you can't be hitting me. So if I don't stop hitting you, then I win. So it was about having the fitness to be able to do that for the entire fight.
Yeah.
And then to shift that to go, okay, how can we look at things differently? I don't want to be grinding everything in my life, grinding my work, grinding my home life, grinding everything. And it's, yeah, so then you take that step back, and again, that becomes part of the development, and letting go of that definition of yourself is important but challenging.
Yeah, but it's like you say, with the grinding and everything, is part of that sort of, well, if I just ignore it or I just keep going, it will get better, because it always has done. But as you're getting older, and particularly a former athlete who's gone through a lot of trauma in their body, maybe that mindset, that behavior isn't going to work. Just grinding through it and pushing through it isn't going to work because it's worked in the past. Sometimes you have to say, okay, accept where I am. Maybe I need to take a different direction or have a different approach to how I get my health and fitness back and still maintain that peak performance and feel good while I'm doing it. Because you don't want to be in pain. You want to be able to feel good on a daily basis. Because if your body's feeling crap, it's under stress, you're inflamed, you can't keep fit. Well, every time you go to the gym or go to run or play tennis or play whatever sport it is, everything hurts before, during, or after.
Yeah.
And you have these moments when you feel good, but then it just...
that phrase, peak performance. Because are you talking about a specific sport, or is that person talking about, or for life? And if you can really sort of tweak it and be like, I just want to be peak performing for life, then I think you suddenly open up a whole new network of things. And that's what I found. So when my brother-in-law got ill, I opened up all these networks. I mean, I significantly do a lot of breath work with people. I introduce it into the massages I do. I introduce it into the training and the fitness that I do. I do breathwork classes now. I do one-to-ones with people, and it's such a fantastic tool that you can learn to adjust your state. So if you're feeling a bit tired and fatigued, there's a pattern that you can do to bring yourself up. If you're feeling a bit anxious and overwhelmed, you can do something to bring yourself down as well. Like, well, you're going to do a podcast or something. So I did a little breath before I started today. I was like, right, okay, bring myself in. How am I feeling? And so you've got these little things and these little tools to be able to adjust your physiology to cope. So they've been big changes, I think, that have helped.
Yeah, and it's really, like you say, once you learn these tools, you can tap into them as and when you need them, because you get to understand your body, you get to listen to your body, know what it needs, and find out which of these things you've learned, which actually brings us nicely into starting to learn a little bit about your 8 pillars. Because where did you come up with these 8 pillars? What helped you build this framework? And then just tell us a little bit about what it is and how people can then use that in their day-to-day life.
Okay, so it was researching and looking at sort of how I could improve myself and how I could make changes. And so I saw listening to plenty of people, that sort of a lot of functional doctors and medicine people, really sort of started the template off with your simple things like nutrition. And I always think it's nice to use nutrition rather than diet, because I think sort of
diet has sort of negative connotations. It feels like you've got to give things up and it's going to be tough and boring and dull. And
I've even heard it called like a marketing plan. It's got an intention at the beginning of it, whereas nutrition sort of envelops everything, and you go, okay, it's a convoluted thing, but let's see where we want to adjust and make changes. Movement, I think the phrase movement's nicer than exercise, because again, I think exercise has quite a negative, I can't exercise, I haven't got time to exercise. But movement, well, everybody accepts that they move, and it's just, okay, can you move well today? Are you, and this brings me, I think it's really nice to try and add little bits in every day. So if I'm getting down on the floor to demonstrate an exercise, I won't use my hands. So then I've got to use good mobility to get down and get up. So you start tweaking little things in. So movement, nutrition, sleep, I think is an essential one. And I started there, and then I felt like there needed to be other bits coming in. So relaxation methods, so the breath work, or the heating pads, or the going for a walk in nature, something that helps you relax. Ice baths, I know some of the
whether ice baths are very relaxing.
But you come, they're not when you go into them, because they put you through a moment of stress, but when you come out, you tend to feel and I'm yet to find people that don't feel like they can almost take on the world after having one. You sort of you get that, it takes you through a conditioned stress and brings you out the other side, and then when you come out, you're like, right, good, I'm ready to go. You sort of
it takes your energy way up. You really feel like you can run a marathon out.
Yes, yeah. It takes you into that artificial stress or that controlled stress, and then brings you back out. And I feel, you feel relaxed after. So relaxation skills, toxin removal. I think there are so many toxins in our life day to day. Some that we're aware of, and some that we're not. And I use things like doTERRA oils, which are very natural oils. But also I use a brilliant app that I found called Yucca, and you scan products, and it tells you all of the additives, all of the potential harm for a lot of these products. It's so useful. So again, finding toxin removals, finding replacements for products that you take, like sun creams. There are sun creams that have a lot of harmful things in them, but there are some that don't. So you can just pick those, and so toxin removal. And then we're into what we started the conversation with, which is passion, purpose, and community. And those three, I feel, are sort of wrapped up together. I feel like you can be lacking in maybe one, and so there are a lot of people, when they retire, I'd argue their purpose feels like it drops down. Like if they've worked all their life, working, generating money, doing this for the business or that for the business, that was their purpose. And like I said, with fighters, that was what they did. That was their purpose. You take that away, they get a bit lost. And what I've found is you can either find a new purpose, or having lots of passions and having lots of community really, really sort of, so those three, it's almost like you get a cumulative score. If you mark them all out of 10, and you need a decent sort of 18 between them. So you've got, I've got one client, he retired early, like 40s, and he makes his own sourdough bread. He goes cycling, he goes to the velodrome once a week, he plays golf, he's got so many little things, and they're not all community based. He does cycling on Swift and stuff like that, but he will go play golf with people, he will cycle out and meet. He's just got such like hubs of communities that he interacts with, that he gets lots from. He's got passions that he can research and look into, and it just fills the life. in a really positive way. And I think that's where a lot of I like the phrase brain health rather than mental health. I think everybody thinks, oh, brain health, I can do something about that. Whereas mental health, they go, I don't need to do anything about that. I'm all right. So I like the phrase brain health, and I think it really helps your brain health if you got a decent portion of those passion, purpose, and community in you. I think it really helps. Things like when people retire, you hear, I've heard quite a lot, it's really good for your health if you get a dog. Well, it's because it gives you a purpose. You're going out for a walk.
You get outside and get some exercise.
Because I've heard this before. When I'm going to get a dog, because then it'll be easier for me to go for a walk. Like, no, it won't. Like, walking on your own's easier than walking with a dog. But they don't value that as much. And I think that's one thing I feel gets really... I feel it's a real shame that people don't value themselves enough to do the things that they know they should. And that's one thing I do work on people with. Like, that's great that you're going to take a dog for a walk. But if you haven't got a dog, couldn't you just go for a walk because you want to go for a walk because it's good for you, like you mentally, it's good for you physically, it's good for you emotionally. Like, just go for a walk because you need to. And I think that's one thing that gets really, really lost in why am I doing it? And but back to our point, if they have a dog, they've got to get up in the morning at a certain time because the dog needs to go out, and then you need to take the dog for a walk and you need to feed it, and you've got this commitment that people sort of miss when they've retired. So yeah, I think passion, purpose, and community is a really, really vital one.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, as we get older, we become more socially isolated. So community is actually probably one of the top. I think it was the World Health Organization said, if you have true health, it's, you obviously physical, your mental, your emotional, but it's also your social as well. So people need to look at it. It is a very holistic. It's all encompassing. There's no one thing that you do that's suddenly miraculously going to make you fit, strong, healthy, peak performance. You got to look at everything, like you said, and you're going through those 8 pillars. If you have all of those in place to some degree, some are going to be more than others. You can have more of one than the other. That's okay. As long as you're getting aspects of all of that in your life, I think is the key, particularly as you're moving through that later part of life.
Yeah, when you're going through a change, I think that it's really useful. I think with the 8 pillars, it's really nice because most people can be, quite a lot of people will be like, well, I go to the gym 3 times a week, so I'm pretty healthy. And you go, great. But let's look at these and which of these is lacking. And there's normally one that people go, well, I do these 4 well, but these 4, I've never really even considered, or I don't pay any attention to that. And you go, great. There's a point. I love Dave Brailsford's marginal gains, of looking for that tiny thing that can make a difference to help you step forwards. I love the phrase small things make the big differences, because I really, really believe it. I think the big things sort of arguably the majority of people do, but the small things, they make the big difference. And I know Dave Brailsford with his marginal gains, look for that little thing that makes the difference. And then it might not feel like it makes much of a difference, but that leads to the next thing. And then that leads to the next thing. So I really enjoyed listening to the research from BJ Fogg. He talks about trying to get consistent habits comes from success. So you do one little thing and you go, I feel good, I did that today. And that almost gives you the motivation to do the next thing. So he doesn't really agree with the fact, I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but the 3 weeks. If you do something for 3 weeks, you've got a new habit. Because otherwise we'd never drop doing the habit. We'd always maintain it because we've done it for 3 weeks. It's now a habit. He said it's success. You need these little tiny wins. And I think with the 8 pillars, you can go, okay, I want to improve my sleep. Cool, what shall I do? Okay, well, I'm not going to listen to the news at 10 because that heightens all of my emotions in a good way or a bad way, depending on whatever the news is. And all of a sudden, I've got bright lights, emotions high, energy's high. Right, lay down and try to go to sleep. It just, okay, cool. I'll drop Yeah, it's crazy. It's easy to drop. So you suddenly drop that one, and all of a sudden you're like, I feel a little bit better. What else? And it just encourages you, and you just start running down that rabbit hole, and you go, cool, my sleep's pretty good now.
Mm.
But I'm interested in one of the other pillars now because I've done those. Those four were going quite well. I've looked at this one, and there's always something that people can chip away at, and I think that is that's the thing I love about the 12 pillars that.
Yeah.
Oh, the 8 pillars.
It
The
goes,
8
yeah.
pillars of health. I'm adding some more now.
We're going to find some more somewhere along the line.
And I just think it's just so useful to help people sort of find progression, because I think that's one of the things. People know what they know, and they get to a point, and like in the gym, you often see people hit like a plateau point. Like they're training the same all the time, and they just don't get progression.
Yeah.
If you throw something else in, then you get progression. And the same with the 8 pillars of health. You throw something else, like, oh, cool, I'll look at toxin removal because it's quite easy to do. And right, okay, I'm quite interested in that. And that could be a rabbit hole that can consume you. It's
But it's kind of, it's something that people can really assess for themselves quite easily. They can go through that list and say, okay, well, I'm okay with my fitness because I'm in the gym and I feel fit and healthy. Maybe my nutrition, I'm drinking too much, something, maybe that, like you say, and then go through each of them, give themselves, I don't know, marks out of 10 or whatever, and then make that their purpose, if you like. How fit and healthy can I be into later life, and how I can make, because you do it in your business, you do it as an athlete, any little, like you said earlier, any little small thing, any little increment you can take just to get that bit more performance, that bit more out of what you're doing. Maybe for anyone out there who wants a purpose, make that your challenge. Make that, how can I get that little bit of extra from my life, and go through those 8 pillars and see where am I really falling short, and then start researching and looking, whether you look for someone like yourself to help you, or whether you just think, I wanted to try this by myself, and know what the differences are, take a before and after.
You could some of them are really nice, because if you're going, I want to improve my community, you go, cool. Maybe you go to a local running club, or you go to something that you've got a passion in, and you're like, fantastic, I'm meeting more people that have got a passion that is the same as mine. And all of a sudden you get a greater network, you're engaging in your passion more, and you feel like this work thing that you're doing on yourself, I've got to work on myself, and suddenly it's more fun, because you're spending more time with people that you enjoy spending time with. You're spending more time in your passion, and go, okay, well, that was quite an easy one to work on.
And then that motivates you to do the next and the next, and you sort of break through that barrier of fear and concern and worry and whatever, imposter syndrome, and you keep taking another one, and then it becomes fun. It becomes a fun game to play. And I think we lose that sense of fun and game playing as we get older, particularly as we get much older. And I think it's really important to sort of try and reintroduce that if you're struggling in your life. But for you, from your experience and your clients, when maybe you've taken them through these 8 pillars and you've analysed them and helped them move forward, what of the benefits have they been seeing in their life?
You see them just much more able to cope, and a lot more accepting of things, and they're just like, okay, this is where I'm at. Okay, what can I do to change? And one of my recent clients, he's had to have some surgery because he got cancer, and the mindset approach he had was insane. He just really applied himself. It was so nice to hear. He was like, I've just started moving gently. He was going through the pillars. It really felt like he was keeping in contact with people. So he was having the community. He got movement as soon as he could. He started, I think breath work is like, instead of a pillar, I sort of think of it as like an artery that feeds all of them. And I remember him telling me that he used some of the breath patterns that we've gone through to help him calm and relax. He was using that in the MRI scanner. I think he had to be in there for 50 minutes. And he said, I'm not really good with those spaces. He fell asleep. He said the lady had to knock on the glass to wake him up, because he really is using these. And the thing is, then he's more relaxed and more calm, and therefore his recovery is better. And he's and he's also his relationship with like his family and his kids, because he's not so stressed, and he's like, look, we are where we are, but I'm doing everything I can. Right. He addressed he said the nutrition list they give me is so limiting, but I've played about with it, and now I've got proper meals, and I've got this and I've got that. And he was just literally going through them. He's like, I'm making sure I'm getting plenty of sleep, because that's going to be where I recover. And so when people have challenges like that, it makes huge differences. And then I've got people that are sort of in a really healthy, good place, and they're just like, I've just got the energy to smash into whatever else I want. Like they can be like, you just become the optimal version of yourself at that stage of your life. And I think that's the thing that is really nice, that you can go, fantastic, this is where I'm at, and boom, where can I go now? And so I see people that are taking on, like, it helps them take on physical challenges, like I say, that was very emotional, mental challenges, and dealing with his health challenges. People that are like, I just want to lap this up as much as I can, and just, where can we hit health? What can I get? So there's a real vast array of benefits that people get.
So if someone doesn't do this, doesn't follow a process similar to this, or a strategy or framework, whatever you want to call it, and they're still plodding on, and they're just, as we said earlier, they're just sort of, well, it'll get better eventually if I just keep going. What are the risks? What if they don't sort of take this in hand, if they're struggling at this point in life?
I think you just see people hit plateaus, and if you in the gym environment, you see people that just plateau on their results. They don't have, they hit not improvements for a long time. They inevitably get injured, get frustrated, get demotivated, and their progress actually starts dropping, because they're in the gym less. They're actually progressing or degressing. I think it's, and you can almost feel the demoralization in people, because they can't understand how to take that step forwards. They can't see where the road ahead lies for any progress. And I think that's probably the most damaging thing, is when people don't see a positive path forwards. Like, well, what's the point of doing? I'm sure you've heard it. What's the point of me doing it? I'm not getting anywhere. And you're like, okay, look at the 8 pillars of health. Let's just try some breathing. There's some breathing patterns that I show people, and it literally, in less than a minute, you can change how they looking for these little improvements. You can change their state. I mean, one of the tests I like to do is I get them to count the amount of breaths they do in a minute. As a nation, we're a nation of overbreathers, and you go, look, let's just do this quick pattern of breathing. They do it, and their breathing rate just plummets, like drops right down. They're so much calmer, and then they can think a bit more clearly. So I think it's such a shame when people have lost the drive to improve themselves in any facet. And I'm almost feeling heavy and sad discussing it. Like, you can feel that, like what's the point? So if you don't look at these things, I think that's where you end up, and you end up in a pit. And that's obviously where we go down the, it pushes you towards that depression route and that feeling low route. And it's learning to be like, right, it's not all doom and gloom. Look, you can do this. And then when you see it, like, it's like you've just flicked a switch. The energy,
and that's kind of what we want for everybody, isn't it? To just come to that realization, just making these small little changes. It doesn't have to be a big thing, and you can take it one stage at a time if you're having a lot of problems at the moment. But just get started. Just take it one step at a time. Start going through those 8 pillars and start finding out where those little weaknesses are, that maybe you could just make a few tweaks here and there, and it would make huge difference.
Massive. And just focus on one. Like, you can't realistically look to do loads, and that tends to overload people, and it just sort of crashes down on top of them.
Yeah.
But you just go, right, let's just look for the little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit leads to the next bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, Phill, this has been a great conversation, and I know there's lots of tips and lots of advice there that are going to be really simple for anyone to implement. You don't have to necessarily be a former athlete or a high-flying entrepreneur, but they can really, anyone who really wants to improve their life, get more performance, be more alert, be more focused, get stronger, more resilient, and as we said, sort of re-own their future, which I think is really important with the world around us today, is really bring those healthier strategies, healthier habits as we get older, more so as we get older. And I know that what you do is helping many people. So if people wanted to find out a little bit more about you, get in touch with you, where should they go?
Okay, so the website's islandfitness.com, so Ireland like the country. I'm on Instagram at Island Fitness and at Lifestyle Improvements for Everybody. So that's Lifestyle Improvements, the number 4, everyone. And you can email me at training@islandfitness.com. They're the main ways to sort of get hold of me. And yeah, I'll be happy to help people as they need assistance and just want some guidance down this road.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Phill. I'm sure lots of people will be knocking down your door to get a bit of whatever you've got in your life. As they said, was it when Harry met Sally? I'll have what he's having. But thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate it. You taking time out of your busy schedule to come and talk with me today and share your wisdom with everybody. So from me and from Phill, I would like to say thank you for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you next time on Unleash Your Inner Athlete. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Unleash Your Inner Athlete. You're clearly a very loyal listener and enjoying the content because you stayed all the way to the end. And that means so much to us here, as I love to see that you are enjoying the content we're bringing to you. And I want to be able to grow the channel more, bring you more fantastic guests, and give you more quality information that are going to help you maintain that quality of life you desire and keep you at peak performance. But in order to do that, I do need to ask one little favour, and that is, could you please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell? Because as the channel grows and we bring you more episodes, I want you to be the very first to get each episode and listen to that episode before anybody else can, as soon as it drops. So just do me that one favour, hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you next time here at Unleash Your Inner Athlete. Thank you so much for joining us.